my channel. My name is Wolo. If this is the first time you are seeing any of my videos, I'll say a very big thank you to you. You know what's happening around the world, and I don't want to mention the name because YouTube is doing something funny, and for the past 3 videos I've uploaded, they've just been doing something funny on them, so I will not mention the name at all. You just have to kind of remove your mind from what is going on, because if you keep thinking about it, it's like the whole world is ending. I hope people start self-isolating so that everything can be contained, we can go back to our normal lives, and I pray the world heals itself. Somebody said that it's more like earth cleansing itself, because people rest, machines rest, but earth has not rested. So maybe it's more like telling everybody, every activity, to just know what, just stop, so that I can rest. So I also use this opportunity to say thank you, a very big thank you to the medical doctors, nurses, everybody who is working this period to fight this war, this bio war. It's a very tough one because it is humanity that is at stake at the moment, and lives are being lost on a daily basis. But we can actually save ourselves and stay safe if we wash our hands and self-isolate and try as much as possible to avoid people and practice social distancing if you are to go out. I am also self-isolating as well, so yeah, I hope you are not offended by the last video. Anyway, today's video is about question and answers, because immigration somehow still continues. The first question is, how long does it take to obtain a permanent residency after one applies? So this is broad. It's very broad because it is dependent on the kind of application you put in. There are different types of application. There is AIPP, there's RNIP, there is express entry, that's the federal skilled workers, there's federal skilled trade, there's a Canadian experience class. You know, there are different programs, and it is dependent on which program you are coming with. If your application is under the federal skilled workers program, the processing time is actually 6 months, and it is also dependent on your visa office. Now, I know, I'm very aware that there are 2 visa offices that actually delay people's application. I don't know why. Maybe because of the volume of applicants. And that is New Delhi visa office in India and the Accra visa office in Ghana. These 2 visa offices, they usually kind of have lots and lots of applications. So the 6 months timeline for federal skilled workers program under express entry can extend beyond 6 months. And it is also dependent on the completeness of your application. So if there are no issues concerning your application, if you're not writing any letter to explain anything concerning your application, if your application is straightforward and it is easily verifiable on the internet, if your details can be easily verifiable on the internet, and you do not have any admissibility issues, then within a 5 months period you will be able to get the passport request notification in your email. But if there are issues concerning your application, if you must have explained something, if they cannot verify your workplace, if they cannot verify other things, if you have admissibility issues, then it can take longer than 6 months. So, but the normal processing time is 6 months. If you don't get your visa within the 6 months, it now moves from the normal processing time to the complex case situation. And when it gets to the complex case situation, we cannot say how long the processing time is going to be. There are people whose application in New Delhi and Accra, whose applications have elapsed beyond 6 months. Some have even spent 1 year, some have spent 1 year, 6 months, 18 months waiting for their visa. So everything is dependent on the completeness of your application, if there are no issues concerning your application, and the case analyst handling your own application as well. So that is the duration for federal skilled workers program. For federal skilled trades, is still the same thing, 6 months. Canadian experience class is still the same thing, 6 months. Everything is tied towards your application. Then for AIPP, For AIPP, you have to apply for a work permit because the employer will be waiting for you here, and then when you land, your permanent residence application will be ongoing. So the duration is like 12 months. For RNIP, it's also the same thing. The duration is for 12 months. For provincial nomination, when I mean provincial nomination, just strictly provincial nomination without express entry, is about 13 months. But if you want to do provincial nomination with express entry, then you have to use the express entry timeline, which is 6 months as well. So depending on the province you get your nomination from, for NPMP, that's Manitoba, the processing time to get a provincial nomination usually is about 6 months. But recently it's been extended beyond 6 months to like 7-8 months now, and then you now add that to your express entry 6 months, so you're spending like almost 12 months or 13 months waiting to get your visa. It could extend more than that. For Saskatchewan, they put on their website also about I think 34 weeks thereabout. I'm not so sure, but you can check their website. For Alberta is very short. The processing time for Alberta is short, like within 3 months you should be able to get your nomination. For Ontario, the same thing. The processing time is also short for Ontario as well. So everything is dependent on which stream you use. For the caregiver pilot program, it's dependent on how fast you can get a job. The same thing with AIPP and RNIP. You remember, this kind of streams, they require job search. So if you get a job offer, the processing time for you to get a job offer, then also apply for a work permit, and then come to Canada, and then also apply for your permanent resident status at the same time. All these things come into play, and you should be giving yourself, let's say, maximum 1 year, 6 months to be in Canada as a permanent resident. So there is no strict fixed timeline. For people whose applications are smooth and there are no issues, they can be in Canada as fast as 6 months. Within 6 months they can get their visas. But for people whose applications have 1 or 2 queries and all that needs to be verified, it can extend more than 6 months. So that's the first question. I hope I answered it clearly. Then the second question is it possible to change provinces when one arrives in Canada, and at what stage is one permitted to do just that? Okay, so this question is very important because I have received a lot of questions concerning this. For people who get provincial nominations for places like maybe Saskatchewan or Manitoba, and then they want to change their provinces from Manitoba to Ontario because that's where they feel comfortable, or that's where they want. Changing provinces once you get your provincial nomination can affect you when you apply for your citizenship, because you actually came in through provincial nomination, and it is required that you stay in the province that nominated you. If you cannot find a job in the province that nominated you and you want to move out of that province to another province, you have to write a letter to the province and explain why you want to move from that particular province that gave you the nomination to another province that did not give you nomination. In Canada, there's what you call Charter of Rights and Freedom, and in that charter there is freedom of movement. So what I advise people is this: it is better to stay in the province that nominated you for a long period, let's say 1 year, 2 years, and then after a while, and if you feel you've not gotten the job that you really desire to get, then you can actually move to another province. But before you move to another province, you must inform the province that nominated you. This also happened to somebody who got nomination from Newfoundland and Labrador. He was a young guy who came as a student, got nomination from Newfoundland and Labrador, and then left Newfoundland and Labrador to Toronto, and his PR also was revoked. He went to the Immigration Appeals Division to appeal his situation there. So anybody who is coming under provincial nomination, please take note of this. Even for people who are applying to come under AIPP, RNIP, whatever, take note of this. The community that has nominated you, the province that has nominated you, you are obliged to stay. It is not compulsory, but you just have to stay there so it doesn't affect you in the future. So I hope I have answered that question there, and I hope anybody who is planning to come to Canada should just take note of that. For people who come under express entry, the normal express entry without any provincial nomination tied to it, you are free to go anywhere. I came under the normal federal skilled workers program. I am free to move to any province I want to move to. There is no restriction. I just chose the province I like. But if you came under a provincial nomination, please try as much as possible to stay in the province that nominated you for a long period, 1 year at least, at most, before you move to another province. If you have more questions, please put them in the comment section. I'll be doing more of question and answer sessions this period that we are self-isolating, so that people can be aware of certain rules that they need to adhere to by the time they immigrate to Canada. Stay safe, wash your hands, and let's all be safe. Thank you so much. Bye bye.